Saturday. Welcome into Sports Talk Chicago with Joey Christopoulos right here on WLS AM 890. On today's episode, we're going to talk Ryan Poles, a Chicago Bears season on the brink, and my Chicago Bears existential fan crisis. Let's get to the episode right now. The Chicago Bears are 4-4 on the season, and use whatever cliche you want. Season on the brink, off the rails, on the edge of the cliff. We are there, people. We are there after another incredibly disappointing loss, this time at the hands of the Arizona Cardinals. Last week, I did my rant on Matt Eberflus. What am I going to rant on this week with the Chicago Bears team? Now, first things first, I am not giving up on the season, and nor should you, Bears fans. If you want to give up on the season right now, if you want to call your shot, go for it. You have a 50-50 chance of it working out in your favor. How smart are you? As you might know about me, I am an optimistic sports fan. I'm going to wrap my head around the ways that the Chicago Bears can possibly turn this season around. But again, and we're going to get into it today, I am having an existential crisis as a Bears fan. I'm doing some self-inventory, and we're going to do it here on the episode so I can move forward with this season, remain optimistic about the Bears' future, hopefully remain optimistic about Caleb Williams, but also maybe put up some rules, some guardrails for myself to protect myself, because a lot of Bears fans walked into this season with plenty of enthusiasm and optimism. A lot of that has evaporated. A lot of it evaporated in week one. Kudos to them for putting together a 3-game winning streak against some of the worst defenses in the NFL, the Los Angeles Rams, the Carolina Panthers, and also, of course, the Jacksonville Jaguars in London. But as I've mentioned before, the head coach ain't it. The Chicago Bears are having team meetings. Let me tell you something. In any walk of life, think about your job right now. If you're constantly having team meetings, or maybe you are, ask yourself, is that a good thing? If things were running on all cylinders, if everybody was doing their job, if everybody was pitching in and everybody was seeing and feeling results of success, would we be having a ton of team meetings? No, that's where the Chicago Bears are right now. Now, roll back the clocks a little bit to before the season. I will tell you that I predicted this was going to be an up and down year. And I did predict at one point that the Chicago Bears were going to be mired in quite a deep losing streak, and we were going to be scratching our heads and asking ourselves, where do we go from here? But I have to be transparent and admit that I did not see that coming this early in the season. I've been saying it for weeks. This 3-game stretch with Washington, Arizona, and now New England coming up was crucial for the Chicago Bears to set them up for success, insulate themselves, give themselves a little bit of a pad in an incredibly competitive NFC North. That pad is gone. The wiggle room has evaporated. And now the Chicago Bears are in must-win mode every single week. Positive spin on it, of course. Chicago Bears got to beat these teams, right? It's one thing to build up your win total at the beginning of the year, fall short against probable playoff teams, and then get your butt kicked in the playoffs. If the Chicago Bears want to get back into this thing, if the Chicago Bears want to get to double-digit wins, which was my preseason prediction, they're going to have to beat some formidable opponents. And if you beat some of those formidable opponents and you make the playoffs, that means you're battle-tested and you're ready to roll. So there's really only two ways to go about this, and we'll see what happens. First piece of news, the NFL trade deadline came down. Khalil Herbert is no longer on the Chicago Bears. Man, the writing on the wall seemed to be on this one for quite some time. I said back in training camp I would not cut Khalil Herbert. Running back depth is important. You're literally seeing it with the Cincinnati Bengals, who traded for Khalil Herbert. When one of your guys goes down, it gets thin really quick. And for a rookie quarterback, I thought carrying 3 running backs was a smart move. The problem is that he had no role in this offense, whatever you want to call it. Shane Waldron could not find a role for Khalil Herbert, who averages 4.8 yards per carry for his career and happens to be one of the premier home run hitters on this team. I'm not saying Khalil Herbert is the best running back on the Chicago Bears. I think they probably have assessed this correctly, that he probably is the number 3. But when you put the ball into Khalil Herbert's hands, he has an opportunity to take it to the house every single time. For an offense struggling right now, you probably would have wanted to have that hang around. But instead, they're giving spots to Travis Homer. Again, the Velus Jones decision continues to haunt this move a little bit because they had to go out and get a guy like DeAndre Carter to handle punts. That's a roster spot you could have maybe kept for Khalil Herbert. And when I say home run hitter, Khalil Herbert is, think back to the old days of a guy like Rob Deere in baseball. I mean, this guy was literally hit or miss, right? He doesn't really do much else well on the football field. Not a great pass catcher. Even worse in pass protection. A little bit small, but when you put the ball into his hands, he picks up yards. So I wish him well. We didn't get much compensation back for him. But again, the Chicago Bears, instead of buying this year, the Chicago Bears are selling at the deadline. So in the second part of this, I am going to get to my keys to a Chicago Bears victory, hopefully, over the New England Patriots this week. But at the request of my producer, John Meadows, who's awesome, does an amazing job here, shout out to him. He requested that something that I posted on Twitter after the Chicago Bears lost to the Arizona Cardinals 29-9, he asked me to use this as a structure for the first part of this show. And I acquiesced, and here we go. I'm going to read through you an itemized list of why I'm having an existential crisis as a Bears fan right now. I'm doing some self-inventory of why do we lean certain ways in certain directions with certain narratives? Why does our excitement, of course we're going to be excited about our football team, but why? What are our blind spots? What are my blind spots as a Bears fan? And I hope that you comment and question below if you're watching on YouTube, because I think this is instructive. I'm not saying the season is over, but I'm also saying, Bears fans, as we move forward, when we have the Matt Eberflus conversation, we have to keep our eyes open and keep our eye on the bigger, broader picture of the health of the franchise, where it's going, and how far can Caleb Williams take us. And also, in part with that too, we will eventually assess whether Caleb Williams is the franchise quarterback we're all hoping he is. If everyone in the comments, and I've seen it a little bit, and I understand it's easy to pick on the quarterback. But look, if you want to say that all the problems going on with the Chicago Bears right now, especially offensively, if you want to blame that all on a 22-year-old playing in his 8th NFL game, I don't think you're seeing the bigger picture when it comes to the Chicago Bears, because there are some things that seem to keep repeating themselves over and over, no matter who's in charge. So I'm going to hit this up here, and we're going to start. I'm going to just read it line by line. I do curse a little bit. I was a little upset on Twitter, so I'm going to wash that out because we're on the radio here. Kids are listening. Okay, so here we go. Quote, I'm legit having an existential crisis as a Bears fan. Like a real look in the mirror type stuff about what makes us so blindly excited to only get crushed before Thanksgiving. Here are my thoughts. Let's begin with item A. Item A is that as a Chicago Bears fan, we are so desperate for a winner. We are collectively blinded by what I call shiny objects. And the perfect example of this is Keenan Allen versus a boring road grader that we could have purchased or acquired or drafted on the offensive line. And look, I get it. It's boring, but stashing away that King Poles talk is something that needs to happen right now. That phrase, that lexicon, in the lexicon needs to go on the top shelf, put it away, and bring it out maybe sometime in 2025 if we're lucky. We got to stash away that King Poles talk until we legitimately invest in the offensive and the defensive line. Now, look, last week, I got in on Matt Eberflus. I don't think he's the right head coach. I don't think he's it. I think he's a fine man, probably a solid defensive coordinator. But the CEO of your football team that's supposed to win you football games in January, in the playoffs, take you to a Super Bowl, he ain't it. I think it's only a matter of time with him. And don't be fooled. Even if we come back, win 9 or 10 games, I'm telling you, he has to win at least a playoff game to maybe even possibly save his job. And keep in mind also that if he does save his job somehow this season, Ryan Poles will tell you that it's because he kept the locker room together during tough times. Well, guess what? He said that exact same thing last season. Why are there so many tough times on the Matt Eberflus Chicago Bears? That was last week. Now, this week, I think we need to start having a little bit of a conversation about general manager Ryan Poles. Has he made some strong moves? Yes, he has. Do we like the fact that he somehow lucked into the number 1 pick? that he used that and traded it for draft capital that turned into DJ Moore, Tyreek Stevenson, Jaquan Brisker, Kyler Gordon, Darnell Wright. The list goes on, and we still have the second-round pick coming next year. Bravo. I applaud it. I think he's done a pretty decent job of turning this roster around that was in salary cap hell just a few years ago. But we also need to be honest with ourselves, too, as well. Of all these great moves, how many Pro Bowlers has Ryan Poles drafted so far? I'll hang up and listen. It is year 3 in Ryan Poles' tenure as the Chicago Bears. Where is this offensive line? He is a former offensive lineman. And you've had 3 years to build your team up. And how many Pro Bowlers does Ryan Poles have? And what is the deal with our offensive line? He's punted on it now 3 years in a row. When you talk about draft capital, typically in the top 4 rounds of drafts, that's where you can find possible starters, Pro Bowlers, and even elite superstar players. Ryan Poles has had 14 picks in the first 4 rounds of drafts in his first 3 years as general manager. Do you want to know how many of them he has spent on offensive linemen? 2. Darnell Wright and Karan Amagaji last year, who, by the way, was hurt and started the year off on injured reserve. We'll see if he becomes a good player. He's barely played. Who knows? In his second draft, he didn't even draft an offensive lineman. Everything else has come after the 5th round, whether it's Braxton Jones, Doug Kramer, Ja'Tyre Carter, the list goes on. Has he prioritized it? And when we talk about shiny objects, I know we get excited for the Montez Sweat trade. I know we get excited when we sign DeAndre Swift right out of the gate in free agency, when we trade for Keenan Allen, when we take Roman Dunze with the 9th pick, when we already have Keenan Allen and we already have DJ Moore. Wow, here we go. I said it myself. This rookie quarterback is set up for success like nobody else has ever seen. This is me, my look in the mirror moment here. The Bears don't have an offensive line. Their general manager, who's an offensive lineman, refuses to do something about it. I've said it before in other shows, there is a level of arrogance to the way that this Bears organization attacks the offensive line. They think that they can do it on the margins, Jed Hoyer style. They think that they can find the diamonds in the rough. Ryan Poles himself maybe believes it has more to do with want to and grit than it has to do with physical skill. But again, without this offensive line, shelve the King Poles talk, okay? We are a prisoner of the moment, but also we need to be a student of the past. I know, I'm going to evoke his name right now, Ryan Pace. Not many people were happy with him when he walked out the door, but let's be very fair. By the time he was in his 3rd year as general manager, he was trading for Khalil Mack. He was signing guys like Allen Robinson, Taylor Gabriel, Trey Burton. He had his quarterback in place. So he believed. And a lot of people made the Pro Bowl that year. And let me ask you something else. Be real with yourself now. In 2018, who had the better offensive line? Back then, it was Charles Leno, James Daniels, Cody Whitehair at center, Kyle Long, and Bobby Massey at right tackle. Charles Leno, 7th round pick, not his pick. James Daniels, 2nd round pick, his pick. Cody Whitehair, 2nd round pick, his pick. Kyle Long, not his pick, but 1st round from a previous regime. And Bobby Massey was a free agent. So even Ryan Pace had invested more in the offensive line than Ryan Poles has at this point. And Cody Whitehair went on to become a Pro Bowler. Kyle Long was a former Pro Bowler. James Daniels went off and got money from the Pittsburgh Steelers. Charles Leno signed a 2nd contract with the Washington Commanders. What do we have right now? We have Braxton Jones, 5th round pick, who's currently hurt, been solid, but very Charles Leno-like, doesn't blow your hair back. Tevin Jenkins, maybe the guy that they were hoping, they didn't draft him. Ryan Pace did, maybe the guy that they were hoping would turn into a long-term fixture, a Pro Bowl player, hurt, ineffective. What they did at the center position is borderline malpractice. They signed a guy for $3 million, Coleman Shelton. At right guard, Nate Davis, perhaps one of the worst free agent signings in Chicago Bears history. And then Darnell Wright, a guy who's currently hurt right now. We don't know if he's playing tomorrow. I'm taping this a couple days before Saturday, so forgive me if I don't have the full updated report on Darnell Wright, but he's had a bit of an up and down year. I'd like to give him the benefit of the doubt that maybe he figures it out. But there is more plug and play patched together with glue with Ryan Poles than there is with Ryan Pace right now. That is a huge problem. My second item is when we talk about the quarterback. Here's something that we have to keep in mind, Bears fans. I said item B. On and on and on we go about the quarterback in this town. We're thirsty. We're starving. We've never had a franchise one. Man, would we love to have one. We've traded for a Pro Bowler. We've drafted what people at the time were calling a very toolsy guy with what everyone thought, and Ryan Pace especially thought was a high ceiling. We've taken the athlete winner from a great program. We've taken the number one pick in the draft. We have to keep in mind, it isn't sexy. It isn't fun. I know we want to talk about Caleb, but without the offensive line, it does not matter. Caleb Williams right now is on pace to be sacked 62 times. He's already been sacked 29 times on the year. That would be the fifth most in NFL history, and it would exceed, I believe, the 58 number that Jay Cutler put up. We all go back in the horror story of, Jay Cutler versus the Giants, getting his head kicked in. Caleb Williams is on pace right now to have more sacks in a season than Jay Cutler did in that one faithful year that we love to tell everyone around the campfire. Oh, Jay was tough. Oh, what Jay could have done if we had an offensive line. What Caleb could have done with an offensive line. Dude's only 22 years old, getting his head kicked in. So I'm sorry. I get it. Caleb Williams, he's been inaccurate. He's not on the same page with his receivers. He's been good some weeks, bad other weeks. Who told you that? Me in the offseason. I'm willing to play that out with Caleb. This other stuff is stuff that we've seen before. And it's just different people in different positions of power doing the same thing over and over and over again. Some people call that the definition of insanity. Next item. I can't wait for this one in the comments. When we talk about shiny objects, Bears fans, I want you to think long and hard. And I'm just using this as something that we need to keep a perspective on heading into the offseason. If, and in my opinion, when Matt Eberflus gets fired. At this moment right now, offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions, Ben Johnson, he does nothing for me. He does nothing for me. I get it. We are so seduced every time in this town by the offensive coordinator flavor of the week. You don't think Matt Nagy came in here with high pedigree? You don't think he was coming from big, bad Kansas City who just worked with Pat Mahomes? Answer me this question. Riddle me this about Ben Johnson. Do the Chicago Bears currently right now have their O-line? The way that they've invested year in and year out at that position. Just look up the Detroit Lions drafts, what they've done in the first and second rounds the last 4 or 5 years. We do not. Do we have a Jahmyr Gibbs right now? We do not. We had a David Montgomery, but we do not have a Jahmyr Gibbs. Would you maybe make the case that Amon-Ra St. Brown is maybe the better receiver of a DJ Moore? I think it's easily debatable. So these weapons right here, these pieces for Ben Johnson are already better than what the Chicago Bears have right now. So what makes you think that Ben Johnson is just going to come in here and run the NFL all of a sudden? Like, be honest. I mean, maybe he takes some of the aggressive nature that Dan Campbell was able to impart upon him and maybe utilize it. I've heard that also Ben Johnson wants $15 million a year, not my money. Also, the narrative that he had an interview lined up and then canceled it hours before. Not a great look. But here's the thing. We keep getting so seduced by these flavors of the week. Ooh, look at this other team score points. Why can't we have that? Just because, and I'm not doubting Ben Johnson as a talented offensive coordinator or an offensive mind. We need a CEO, head coach in this town. We need an adult. And if he's a little bit of a jerk If he's a little bit rough around the edges, we all just need to suck up and we just need to deal with it. I'm secretly maybe hoping that the Cleveland Browns move on from Kevin Stefanski. He has previous experience. He's won head coach of the year twice. He's taken Baker Mayfield to the playoffs. I'd be interested in that. I think Mike Vrabel checks a lot of boxes. And the other one, and again, hop in the comments here. I am not advocating that this guy should be the number one hire. I am not saying at this time that he is my number one choice to be the next head coach of the Chicago Bears. But look yourself in the mirror, Bears fans, and tell me the Chicago Bears can't even consider interviewing Bill Belichick? Not even a consideration, huh? I know, I'm going to see it in the comments below. Oh, he's too old. He can't win without Tom Brady. Oh, he's a jerk. You know, some of these people in this town that are saying stay away from Bill Belichick are some of them, frankly, are people that are in the industry that are worried that their sound bites are going to get a lot more boring because he doesn't give you a lot in a press conference. This offseason, Bill Belichick is going around the NFL trying to show you that he is a little bit more of a personality, that he is a little bit more human. And everyone's like, when Brady left, he was terrible. He had 29 wins in 4 years with Mac Jones at quarterback. Guess how much that averages to? 7.25 wins per year. Matt Eberflus's career high in wins right now is 7. He's 3-18 on the road. He's never won a road game on a Sunday. You're telling me Bill Belichick can't win us a road game right now? You're telling me Bill Belichick doesn't know how to handle timeouts? You're telling me Caleb Williams, who has been mentored by Tom Brady in the offseason, can't glom and learn some different ways to work with the guy? I'm not saying that we hire him, but this is the same stuff we did last year about how we can't even consider Jim Harbaugh in Chicago because, he might want to have a say in the roster construction, maybe have a little bit of a voice in the draft. Let King Poles cook. We need to stop with this. These are blind spots, people. These are people that have won previously in the NFL. These are people that have been to the mountaintop of where we want to go. They've been to Super Bowls. In Bill Belichick's case, he's won several. You're telling me that you can't even interview him? He can't even be a consideration? Even if you don't want to hire him, you're telling me that you can't learn something from Bill Belichick by bringing him in the room in the offseason and interviewing? And everyone's going to say no. You want to know why? Egos. And that is also something that I'm getting a little hesitant with Ryan Poles. The ego to not do anything with this offensive line for the third year in a row. And also the ego to say, we're not interested in Jim Harbaugh. And possibly to also say, we're not interested in Bill Belichick. Dude's won over 300 games as a coach. You're telling me every single one of those games, Tom Brady won single-handedly? Go back to the Pats-Rams Super Bowl. Go back to the early ones. I mean, come on. I get it that he's old. Maybe one of the pushbacks is maybe he would only be able to do this for 3, 4, 5 years. Maybe you want to find a guy for the long haul. But, man, I would be very curious to see and just see if we can find out. Is that so much to ask? I'm telling you, and we're going to see it here. Please, come at me. Come at me in the comments. But I'm telling you right now, as a Bears fan, if you're just schluffing off to the side Bill Belichick that this town, these Chicago Bears, were too good to even talk to him, it's part of the problem. We're going to end up in the same place we're at over and over and over again. You'd rather hire a guy that right now is putting up 50-plus points because the offensive line is perhaps the best in the NFL. The backfield is perhaps the best 1-2 combo in the NFL. They've been building it up for years. This is the third year with Jared Goff in the system. And you think that's automatically going to transfer over here in Chicago? I could be wrong, but I'm sorry. We've seen the offensive coordinator flavor of the week come into town. And we've seen the defensive coordinator flavor of the week in town. Cough, cough, Matt Eberflus. And you could say also, well, we tried this with John Fox and it didn't work. Okay, John Fox and Bill Belichick, they're not even in the same division, right? Think of it like high school football. He's 5A. John Fox is like 3A. So we can't even do it like that. It's just, these are things that, are you serious about winning in Chicago? Or do you just kind of want to blindly go towards the shiny objects of what's out there. Hey, this is working over there. Let's just bring it over here and it's automatically going to work here. I'm sorry, Mike Vrabel, Bill Belichick, they're boring hires, but those dudes win. They're tough. They're no nonsense. And I bet you money they know how to handle a timeout. I'm reading off my Chicago Bears manifesto because I'm having an existential crisis right now. And there's some things that I think as Bears fans, we're letting slip through the cracks. And I think we all want to be, we're all so hungry for a winner in this town and for success that I think sometimes that enthusiasm is blinding us from these bigger fundamental issues that we need to mandate as Bears fans if we want to be taken seriously in the NFL and one day become real deal contenders. Just a quick catch up of what we did. Obviously the first one is I'm just not into shiny objects anymore. As much as we love 6-time Pro Bowler Keenan Allen on the Chicago Bears, man, I would just love a road grading offensive guard or tackle that's going to protect my quarterback. Boring, I know. Not the best radio topic in the world, but dang it, when we get to January, then it becomes a fun topic of, man, look what we did with this offensive line. The shiny objects of, let's just go get Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator flavor of the week. Let's just do that. And then also our fixation on the quarterback position when we're forgetting what really matters. It doesn't matter if you're Jay Cutler, Mitch Trubisky, Justin Fields, or now Caleb Williams. If you do not have an offensive line in the NFL, it does not matter. You will not succeed. One of my final items here, and honestly, this one is more speculative, but again, this is something that I think is just so in contrast to what a Chicago Bears fan is. And don't get me wrong, we love the game of football. I think that we're not only passionate, but we are also intelligent. But maybe our passion and our enthusiasm gets in the way of us doing enough inventory and demanding more from this franchise. And there it is. Hot Take City, let's talk about ownership. It's one of those rock and a hard places as a fan, right? Because they own the team. We can't just vote tomorrow and either fire the coach off social media or, you know what I mean? The way that we would getting rid of a coach, we can't just get rid of the owner. But a purveying habit continues to run throughout this franchise ever since the day they let go of Jerry Angelo, and then the year after that, they got rid of Lovie Smith. Ownership's quote-unquote values continue to permeate through this, in my opinion, quote-unquote soft franchise. I think the franchise is soft. I think the Chicago Bears, the monsters of the Midway, the team that loves to get off the bus running the football, the team that believes in Butkus, the team that believes in McMichael and Dent, Singletary, Urlacher, tough, hard-nosed, bear weather, winning in the cold. Bears fans are tough. I think the franchise is soft. And we've seen it now in several different iterations. And I think this franchise loves clean-cut, wholesome faces, guys that don't swear, profanity-free, something that makes the McCaskey family, quote-unquote, feel a certain way. And there is evidence of this. The executive producer who worked on Hard Knocks said, in a quote, told CHGO Sports themselves that the McCaskey family had requested that none of their episodes contained any cursing. They wanted it to be family friendly because, as they said, the McCaskey family does not believe in cursing. Look, you can go one way or another on this one, whatever you want. But that is just, I'm sorry, that is kind of weird, and it has nothing to do with football. And because it has nothing to do with football, it also makes me think that they make decisions on general managers and coaches based off of these types of quote-unquote values. I mean, our fan base, subconsciously, we have no choice, right? We have to talk ourselves into these hires. We're Bears fans. When they kick the ball off on Sunday, I'm always going to root and try and figure out a way for this team to win. But I'm telling you, look back to Phil Emery with the glasses. Do you think he seemed like a nice guy? Do you think the McCaskies liked having lunch with him? Mark Trestman, studious, intelligent. Do you think he ever cursed up a storm? I mean, Ernie, of course, he kind of force-fed John Fox onto them. That didn't last very long. Ryan Pace, good-looking guy. You don't need to talk to the press, Ryan Pace. Just come play golf with us. Matt Nagy talks a good game. And now finally, Matt Eberflus. If you're looking over in Washington right now, it just so happens that they have Dan Quinn and they got Jaden Daniels. Now, I'm happy with us taking Caleb Williams over Jaden Daniels. I think over time, I really do believe that we are going to be right on that. Jaden Daniels, for me, was a little bit more of a long-term, is he going to stay healthy just because of his thin frame? But Dan Quinn's been to a Super Bowl. Dan Quinn also, for 3 years straight, made the Dallas Cowboys one of the best defenses in the NFL. And the Chicago Bears weren't interested. You want to know why? Because Dan Quinn swears like a sailor. Every other word is an F-bomb. And that's just how he talks and that's how he converses. It's for some people, not for everybody. In NFL locker rooms, it tends to play pretty well. And I'm just going to go out there on a limb. And as a Bears fan, I feel like that was a detractor for consideration to make Dan Quinn the head coach of the Chicago Bears. When you look at it, really, what's the difference between Dan Quinn and Matt Eberflus other than Dan Quinn's done it before? Dan Quinn's been to a Super Bowl with the Atlanta Falcons. Dan Quinn's worked with a guy like Kyle Shanahan as an offensive coordinator, so he sees the goods and he knows them when he sees them. Hence why they signed Cliff Kingsbury to be their offensive coordinator, another guy who was at House Hall. And a dude that we praised the Indianapolis Colts defense and their takeaways. The Dallas Cowboys were not only number one in takeaways, they were one of the best defenses in the NFL. And they said no thanks to Dan Quinn. I wonder why. And part of it makes me think that the values of the family permeate through the franchise of football. And there's got to be a little bit of some separation of church and state here. And it's a real problem. And look, as I'm saying this, I already know I'm really upset. I'm upset about my Chicago Bears. We're 4-4 right now. I don't think we should be. And with Matt Eberflus teams, man, he really strings you along and he gets you jacked up. And then that lead just slips right through your fingers. We saw it countless times last year, and we've definitely seen it in the Washington game. And then, of course, the Chicago Bears just laid an egg against the Arizona Cardinals. I don't know whether to say the Chicago Bears have quit on Matt Eberflus for the season. I think that that's a little silly. Sometimes you just come out and you play flat. But something happened there where I think maybe the head coach needed to kick some butts. And I think the Bears spent a little bit too much time feeling sorry for themselves and mentally weren't ready to play the gladiator sport that is football on Sunday. And the Arizona Cardinals handed it to them. The tackling was awful. The offensive line was overmatched. You know, the pass concepts, everyone's going over it right now. No one was on the same page. They get a good opportunity to bounce back. But I'm just kind of looking at these things as a Bears fan, and I'm going to say, you know what? I'm not going to get fooled by this stuff anymore, you know? Because, look, honestly, it's not our fault. We're passionate. We're enthusiastic. I keep saying it over and over again. But sometimes as Bears fans, we have to be honest with ourselves. Sometimes we pick up that turd burger, we take a big old bite out of it, and we smile. I am the first one to admit that I totally do it. It's better to live a life in excitement and optimism than it is in dire despair and pessimism. And some of you do that as Bears fans, and good for you for trying to do it. But honestly, when we talk about this boring stuff, cough, cough, the trenches, offensive line, defensive line, it ain't as fun to talk about, wow, we just signed so-and-so, 6-time Pro Bowler who's going to get us 1,000 yards. I can't wait to see us air it out. Finally, the Chicago Bears take flight in the vertical passing game and become a great offense in the NFL. I know that's a lot more fun to talk about. But when we talk about the trenches, the defensive line, the offensive line, when it's January and you're getting ready to play a playoff game, I promise you, it is dang fun to talk about. And my final thought on General Manager Ryan Poles is sometimes we got to pay attention to some of these things that are out there while we are excited and try and have a nuanced, comprehensive approach at how we want to attack some of this stuff. Because sometimes in the NFL, you can't reinvent the wheel. There are plenty of smart people in the offseason, the last 2 offseasons. And I'm going to say former Bears center Olin Kreutz is one of them. That quote-unquote King Poles was building this roster in reverse. And me, like many other Bears fans, I mean, I talked about the offensive line all summer, but I got excited. I simply shrugged and I threw on Hard Knocks and got excited. And if I'm the idiot on the couch doing some soul searching right now, what it means to be a Bears fan, I sure as hope people at Hallis right now are doing the same. Ryan Poles, I want to believe that he's a type of general manager that we can hang our hat on for the next several years. But we cannot let him escape the criticism of he has built this roster in reverse. And there are no fruits of the labor right now. I mean, there's some rotten apples going on. Our secondary that he spent a lot of draft capital on is banged up at the moment. I mentioned the offensive line is absolutely terrible. And oh yeah, by the way, Ryan Poles last offseason had an opportunity to wipe the slate clean and bring in a whole new coaching staff and prepare it for whoever he wanted to pick at number one, Caleb Williams. And he decided to keep Matt Eberflus, decided to fire Luke Getsy, and decided to hire Shane Waldron. Where are we today? Luke Getsy got fired this week from the Raiders, and a lot of Bears fans want to show offensive coordinator Shane Waldron the door already. At some point, we do have to ask ourselves and ask some very honest questions and healthy criticisms of general manager Ryan Poles, as much as we do with Matt Eberflus. My final thought on this, Matt Eberflus, I don't think he should see the field as the Chicago Bears head coach in 2025. I want a fresh start in that regard. Ryan Poles, I'm willing to give him a couple more swings at the bat. Thank you, Carolina Panthers. That trade isn't even over yet. I'd like to have him see it through. But we got to shelve this King Poles talk until we start actually really winning some football games and getting to the playoffs. And I don't think it happens until he seriously, intensely invests in the offensive line in the offseason. Before we get out of here, I do want to preview Chicago Bears, New England Patriots. Chicago Bears finally come home after being a month away. Maybe that played a little bit of a role in what we've been seeing from the Chicago Bears the last 2 weeks. But they entered the game 5.5-point favorites. The total in the game is 38.5. For those of you that don't like to play around with Vegas, that is an incredibly low number. I think Vegas is anticipating a low-scoring game in this one, and I would probably follow suit. Chicago Bears, I'm taping this a couple days before Saturday, so forgive me. There are some injuries. Obviously, Andrew Billings underwent surgery for a pec injury. He's probably gone for the year. When we talk about stopping the run, which has been a problem for the Chicago Bears, he by far was the best at doing that. So I'm curious to see how that plays itself out. There is hope that Montez Sweat gets back on the field and plays. Kyler Gordon, too, as well, while Jaquan Brisker still out with a concussion. That's turning into a real problem. And as much as I love the guy, watching him on the field, his style of play and what he brings to the defense also coincides with his propensity to get concussions. It's a worry. It's a problem. The other one is Braxton Jones and Darnell Wright have missed practice time this week. Hopefully by the time of this taping, they're at least questionable. Hopefully we can get one of them back before the game. So when we're looking at this matchup here, the Chicago Bears, man, this could get really ugly. I think obviously the advantage in this game is the Chicago Bears defense is going to be by far, without a doubt, the best unit on the field between both squads. Huge advantage for the Chicago Bears. Even with some of those guys that I mentioned are out, they have enough there to really hold this New England Patriots offense in check. Just a couple of quick numbers, really easy. Opponents, for the offensive side of the ball, Chicago Bears, New England Patriots, not good on third down. Patriots 25th in the NFL. The Chicago Bears second to last at 31 in the NFL. Rush offense per game, Chicago Bears 23rd in the NFL. Patriots 24th in the NFL. Passing yards per game, Chicago Bears 29th in the NFL. New England Patriots dead last at 32, 32nd in the NFL. First downs per game, Chicago Bears 23rd in the NFL, Patriots 30th in the NFL. Yards per play, Chicago Bears 30th in the NFL, Patriots 31st in the NFL. Are you catching my drift? Chains might not be moving in this game. They got Drake May under center. Good for him. I think he's brought a couple of interesting different wrinkles that New England Patriots quarterbacks of past haven't seen. I think one of the major keys in this game is going to be making sure that he just doesn't burn you too much with his legs on second and long, third and long situations. He can get up there, slip up, pick up some extra yards, keep the chains moving. Hopefully it doesn't burn the Chicago Bears too bad. He's only completing 52% of his passes on third down, 13 dropbacks in that situation. He does have 13 TDs, though, in the 13 first downs in those moments. And on third down, and plus he's 9 of 14, and also some rushing yards, too, as well. So he's got a big arm. He's going to take some chances. I think the Chicago Bears should be turnover hunting in this game. The Patriots have a minus turnover margin differential this season. The Chicago Bears are still in the plus category. This is a great opportunity for them. When we talk about the defensive side of the ball, opponents' points allowed per game. The Chicago Bears in the NFL still fifth right now at 18.5. New England Patriots definitely worse. On the other end of it, 21st in the NFL at 24.1 points allowed per game. Pass yards allowed per game. The Chicago Bears 8th, 191. The Patriots 22nd in the NFL at 224. Rush yards allowed per game. Chicago Bears 20th. Hasn't been great, but the Patriots have been worse. 26th in the NFL, and then third down conversions allowed to the opponent. The Chicago Bears are 8th. They're doing a really good job, or a better job, I should say, of getting teams off of the field on third down. Patriots 28th at 45.4%. So Chicago Bears second to last in the NFL at third down conversions. Patriots 28th in the NFL and allowing third down conversions to be made by the opponent. Might be a little something there. So my major keys to the game. Look, I'm 5-3 on my picks this year. I'm on just as much of a slide as the Chicago Bears are in terms of winners and losers in this game. But in my opinion, the first one, this is some fundamental stuff here because this is where we're at with the Chicago Bears at 4-4 on the season. You got to just stop the run. They don't have a great rush offense. But again, it's been a bit of a problem for the Chicago Bears. You don't have Andrew Billings in this game. And for my former Bears defensive end, my co-host on a lot of different shows, Corey Wooten, a lot of this stuff just comes down to effort, grit, and want to. Gap discipline. Stay on your assignment. Doesn't take world-class athletes to stop the run. And that's something that they definitely need to do. I think Hunter Henry is definitely going to be Drake May's favorite target. Again, that's going to be linebacker play in my opinion. So you can keep it in front of you. Stay out of the big play universe and just slowly just creep in defensively and shrink the field for a young rookie quarterback. I think this can be a good day. No Andrew Billings, but at the same time, the Patriots actually are allowing more sacks than the Chicago Bears this time, 31 on the season. So again, when we talk about the matchups, I'm not a big fan of the Chicago Bears defensive line, but I do think that they can get home and create some more pressures than they normally would because the matchup is strong. My other key to success against the New England Patriots is on the other side, let's just start running the ball for a little while. I think we just need to calm everything down. I think with Shane Waldron under fire, I think there's some people now starting to look at the rookie quarterback a certain way. People are looking at Keenan Allen's drops. People are asking, where's DJ Moore's head at right now? Why is Cole Kmet getting 0 targets in a game? You know what calms all this stuff down? It's just running the football a little bit. Let's get back to some meat and potatoes, and let's just get everybody kind of comfortable and back into that rhythm. I don't need to see Caleb Williams throwing the ball 41 times a game like he did last week. I just don't think it's necessary right now. Maybe we can build our way back up to it, but let's ramp it down and do some baby steps, okay? 4 of the last 5 teams that have played the New England Patriots have racked up over 160 yards as a team. Bears have also allowed, as I said before, 29 sacks. Let's calm all this down. Let's not put everything on Caleb Williams' shoulders. You're having some timing issues. You're having this, having that a little bit. Let's get back to that play action a little bit, and let's run the football. Ironic that we just traded Khalil Herbert. But again, I like Roschon Johnson, and I really like what I've seen from DeAndre Swift. I think we need to run the ball. Those two guys, I think we need to see Roschon get 10-plus carries in this game. I think we need to see DeAndre Swift in his normal spot getting those 14 to 17. And I think we need to run the ball 28, 30, 31, 32 times. Let's shorten the game a little bit. Let's hit that 38.5 under on the points, and let's just come out with a win. Get back to playing fundamental football, and then we can start ramping ourselves up into these Packers games and these NFC North games moving forward. But back to fundamentals this week. Another key to the game also is, again, as I mentioned, battle of the bad offenses. Bad offense. Patriots total offense, 32nd in the NFL. Bears, 28th in the NFL. So again, when you talk about battle of the bad offenses, I want us to run the football. Honestly, when we talk about Caleb Williams not playing well, I don't want to jinx it. He's done a really nice job of protecting the football, keeping it out of harm's way. There haven't even been those should have been interceptions. Because partly because, I'm going to throw a little shade here, partly because he's been pretty inaccurate lately. But at the same time, 0 turnovers. Let's keep it that way. Battle of the bad offenses. Who's going to make the right plays when they need to be made? Who's going to make the right calls? Looking at you, Shane Waldron. Bounce back opportunity. The Bears have played well at home. The crowd is going to be frothing. The crowd, I'm telling you right now, we've had bad first quarter starts this year. Bears go scoreless in the first quarter of this game. I think you're going to hear people booing. So why don't we get past that a little bit, get some decent drives on the board. I don't even care if you kick a couple of field goals in the first quarter. Battle of the bad offenses, stay ahead of that if you can. My final key to a Chicago Bears victory over the New England Patriots, I just wrote down vibes with a Z. Hashtag vibes. At this point, we're starting to look at body language around here. What does the energy look like on the sideline? You know, after a bad drive, who's hanging their head? Who's got their head up to the sky? Is DJ Moore? We're going to cut to DJ Moore a bunch now because he's given us a ton of body language fodder to go over on social media right now. Defensively, are guys flying to the ball? After a good play, is there energy? Are there other guys coming up slapping on helmets? Are they running, sprinting off the field when they get a third down? Stop. O-line picking people off the ground. I mean, we're at this point when they're having team meetings, head coach is under fire. A lot of people are questioning whether this team is still playing for that head coach, whether it's all going sideways, going off the rails. I just need to see the energy up. I need to see the vibes. They did not pull on the same rope last week against the Arizona Cardinals. In fact, they let go of that rope, and that rope is 2 miles down the road. So I just want to see this team get back to playing with energy. As Matt Eberflus would say, playing for each other. But we need to start seeing some smiles on the sidelines, some successful plays turn into bigger moments turn into a victory. The Bears got to get back in the W column. And I just want to see that the vibe, the energy picks up a little bit. Because if you're not going to play for the head coach, man, at least play for the C on your helmet, the next contract that you're going to sign, and the dudes that are in that locker room. They are more talented than a 4-4 team. Let's see what that looks like against a very easily beatable opponent. Having said that, my final score prediction, again, 5-3 on my picks this year. I'm almost going carbon copy of last week. I'm going Chicago Bears 20, New England Patriots 17. Still not buying into this offense. I think the Chicago Bears can do enough to keep Drake May at bay, hold them under 20 points. Could be a tight game. But again, it all just kind of depends a little bit on optics, right? If Caleb makes a couple of good throws, we hang on for the victory. The vibe is good. The energy is up. The defense is flying around the football. I think 20-17, you can wrap your head around it as a positive step moving forward. Chicago Bears lose this game. I have a hard time seeing Matt Eberflus as the coach much longer. And I know a lot of people are going to be calling for his job probably that next morning. I think the more likely scenario is probably somewhere around Thanksgiving if he loses this Patriots game. But, man, you can't lose this game. You just can't do it. It's the one game on the schedule in the offseason we all circled and said W and put it in permanent marker. And I don't care how bad you're playing right now. You cannot lose this football game. So I got the Chicago Bears winning 20-17, get to 5-4, and then bring on that NFC North schedule, take it one game at a time, and see what happens. That's going to do it here for Sports Talk Chicago with Joey Christopoulos right here on WLS AM 890. You can follow me at Joey Sports Guy if you'd like. You can follow us at Sports Talk Shy on socials if you want to check in with our news and notes. If you want to follow us for more content, go to our YouTube channel. Just type in Sports Talk Chicago. Please like, comment, and make sure you subscribe to that channel for all future updates. I want to thank WLS for having us on here every single week. Happy Saturday, Chicago. Have a wonderful night. Have a good night's rest and get up and let's win a football game tomorrow. I appreciate the time. I appreciate the listen. Thank you so much for tuning in. Sports Talk Chicago with Joey Christopoulos is out. See you next week.